Alright, hear me out. The iPhone SE is the phone that is the most desperate for an upgrade in the Apple ecosystem. Let me explain. Now, over the past few years, despite being very behind in general, Apple has finally caved in and began upgrading phones that have been stagnant for years. The base model iPhones have received an updated look along with new features, and Pro model iPhones have continued to add great features and have an overall new feel. And despite Apple giving the base model iPhone the upgrade that it needed, sadly, I can't say the same for the iPhone SE. See, the iPhone SE was supposed to be a phone for people who want to end on the Apple ecosystem, but wasn't willing to spend an extreme amount of money. But as time goes on, the best option for people who don't want into the Apple ecosystem, but don't want to spend a bunch of money is an older base model iPhone, or even an iPhone mini, since these phones are cheaper than the iPhone SE. This, mixed in with the fact that the iPhone SE has had an older feel and can't handle the latest software properly, puts this phone at a serious disadvantage all across the board. And that's why in this video, I not only wanted to share my experience with the latest iPhone SE, but I also wanted to share my thoughts on what I think that Apple could do to make the SE series good again. But first and foremost, let's start with my experience. Now, in my reviews, I try to be as blunt and honest as possible, and when it comes to the iPhone SE, my experience has been very underwhelming when it comes to overall feel. Not feel as in build quality, but feel as in this phone does not run iOS 17 smoothly, and it feels like I'm using an iPhone 8. Despite it having a pretty good 815 Bionic chip, the 60Hz refresh rate felt extremely laggy, animations were much slower than any phone that I've used in the past year, and the SE having huge bezels with a little screen didn't really help that much since I had to put the phone closer to my face in order to see small texts. And there were also times where I'm in an app and it will randomly start bugging out on me and I would have to close out that app fully. And also apps crashing was a big problem, but it wasn't as frequent as the bugs and lags. Now moving on to display, it was one of my favorite things that the SE had to offer. The 4.7-inch Retina LCD won me over when it comes to nostalgia. In terms of practicality, it wasn't perfect, but it didn't stop me from still having a good experience. Everything on the display from top to bottom was easy to reach. I really enjoyed the ease of using one hand and not having to extend my fingers in a weird way to reach a certain part of the screen. Having Touch ID made things even easier. The convenience helped whenever I was in the shower and needed to unlock my phone to change the song. And it was also nice since it was faster than some of the newer phones on the market. Now, quick side note, have you guys ever been blinded by nostalgia? Like a movie or a TV show that you used to watch as a kid was pretty great, and then many years later you watch it as an adult and you kind of slowly realize that it wasn't as great as when you were a kid. That's kind of how I feel about the display. The home button, the huge bezels, and the extremely small display is good when you think about the good old days, but then you realize that newer phones are just more practical. Yeah, it is easier to reach the top of the screen, but a bigger display has more benefits. On my SE, I can hardly read anything since the text is very small. The huge bezels are reflective as well, so they can be very distracting once you come into contact with sunlight, and the overall experience is outdated. But surprisingly, the viewing experience wasn't as underwhelming. I missed watching videos and having no camera cutout cut into the video like the newer iPhones. The resolution wasn't the best, but it was still good, and the bezels gave the exact same proportion, so everything felt balanced and even. But once my nostalgia wore off, I realized how dim this phone is in sunlight. 625 nits isn't the best, especially since the iPhone 13 mini is at the same price, and it has 1200 nits, which is double. Build quality was and is arguably the best thing that the SE has going for it. This is where my nostalgia kicked in fully. The extremely slim body, the single camera, and compact feel will always have a special place in my heart. Holding this phone felt amazing, and despite it being very slim and compact, I never felt like it would slip out of my hands, and I was able to maintain a firm grip at all times. The SE has very rounded corners all around, from the frame all the way to the edges of the phone. The SE has a very welcoming presence and was easier to hold since it rests in my palm smoothly. I love the matte sides, especially since they look great while also deflecting fingerprints, but I can't say the same for the back. It's glass and it can attract fingerprints. And even though it does look great when it's clean, it can ruin it once you touch it once. Going deeper into the build, the iPhone SE has continued that Apple premium feel all around. The buttons were very nice and clicky, the speakers looked symmetrical and contributed to the overall aesthetic, and the lightning cable still worked fine. On the opposite end of the spectrum though, the durability is very shaky, no ceramic shield, and an outdated Gorilla Glass material is a very bad combination. One drop and the front or back of your phone could be severely damaged, so I would say it's a good idea to use this phone with a case and screen protector. The battery was also something that the SE could improve on. Again, I know that this is a cheap older phone, but you can get much better results from other phones at this price. My battery health is at 85%, which isn't the greatest, but also isn't the worst. And I feel like even when my phone was at 99% health, it still wasn't able to hold up due to the battery being put in a smaller body. On an average day, I'm racking up 3 to 4 hours. I rarely end my day without needing an extra charge. So if you do get the iPhone SE, I will be the first to recommend a portable charger since the battery is not as reliable as its competition. On a day-to-day basis, I'm scrolling through social media when I'm bored. I mainly watch videos and send texts with occasional gaming. I wasn't playing heavy games like Call of Duty, but more simple games like Asphalt 9 ran pretty smooth. And now looking at camera, the iPhone SE was able to not only exceed my expectations, but it was also able to look comparable to newer iPhones in certain environments. And now comparing it to the iPhone 15 Plus, the selfies were pretty comparable in certain aspects. The lighting and color was the biggest difference for me in some cases, but overall, I think that the SE was able to stand on its own and show how great Apple's camera software is. Everyday pictures widened the gap. The colors and sharpness was a little bit more distorted, but I still found the pictures to be very clean. Of course, the iPhone 15 Plus looks better, but I really wanted to just show you guys the difference between now and then when it comes to the Apple ecosystem. Videos were good, but again, the outdated factor came into play. The lack of updated stabilization, the lack of proper lighting, and the lack of overall quality was the biggest difference for me. But as a standalone, it's actually better than a lot of newer budget competitors, and I feel like it still has a nice spot in the budget market. So throughout this whole video, I've been claiming that the iPhone SE is old, outdated, and basically needs a new refresh. And if Apple one day decides to make a new iPhone SE, here are some upgrades that I think will really help it. Now, first and foremost, I would like to see them completely replace the body and display and basically copy and paste the iPhone 13 mini. I really felt like the iPhone 13 mini was too small for people to spend $700 on, and I think its design could be implemented and accepted in a more budget-friendly setting. And after that, I would pretty much love to see them add the necessary basics, updated camera software, USB-C, and I think that these are solid changes that they could make without upping the price of the SE too much. But that's my thoughts on the iPhone SE. It's a phone that is very outdated, and I think that if you are someone who wants a good, cheap, compact phone that is better in every way, the iPhone 13 mini is a much better choice. And let me know down in the comments, what upgrades would you like to see if Apple were to make a brand new iPhone SE? Peace.
Hey, and I know far too well, yeah.
I feel like I am locked inside of all these cages. I'm chained and need changing. Feels like I'm incarcerated. I'm chained in.
I'm trapped inside the ghetto where the gunshots echo. 38 specials kill potential. Never felt safe after school on my way home. Better protect your neck cause it's essential. Better stay 10 toes down doing daily dances with the devil. Deep beneath the surface lies an angel in this hellhole. Be quiet, talking to myself again. I wrote this verse in silence. Same way that I'm suffering, swear I just need some guidance.